Hey guys, Plasma 1945, and I don't know if anybody told you, but we're living in the good days of DCS. That's right, DCS has been around for about 11 years, and we've got VR, we've got multi-threading, we've got RAM, and we've got all kinds of full fidelity planes. But it wasn't always like that. DCS came out, well, 11 years ago now, and let's go back to that time and leave the 4090, the 1080 behind, and jump back to 2012. In June of 2012, the GT640 came out. In May, DCS World Open Beta got released. And just before that, in April, the 3770 came out as the flagship processor from Intel. At the time, this was the pop scene. It was all about somebody that you used to know. And if you didn't know, then you were probably singing Gangnam Style and pretending to know Korean. And also there was this little movie that came out in May of 2012, maybe you've heard of it, The Avengers. And around the same time, while people were lining up to go watch The Avengers and figure out how Tony Stark was going to save the universe, we had this setup. This is the GT640 from EVGA, a Dell workstation configuration. This is a 3770 processor with 32 gigs of RAM, which was way more than anybody needed at the time. And really, if we compare the performance of the hardware from that time to now, well, the 640 had 0.69 teraflops, 3060, 16 teraflops, 4090 has 83 teraflops of processing power. That's trillions of operations. This is the size to scale if you were to compare the performance of the GT640 versus the 4090. The CPUs aged a little bit more gracefully. The 3770, 3.9 gigahertz and 4 cores, 12700. It has 8 performance cores and goes up to 5 gigahertz, but it does smoke even the 3770. So, first off, we're going to have that same 3770, but with a 3060 Ti. Remember, that's the 16 teraflop video card that came out in 2019, and we're at 4K. And we're actually getting about almost 60 FPS, which is pretty fantastic. So that 3770 processor is actually pretty decent, unless you get to those really complex scenarios of lots of simulation. But looking at this, 3060 Ti is pulling off 4K at nearly all high settings, and we can even go into this dogfight. But don't worry guys, things are going to get much worse as soon as I replace that video card, and we're definitely going to stall out way more than a Cobra would on an airplane. So remember, the 3060 Ti has 16 teraflops of processing power, but in 2012, this is what we had, the GT640 with 0.7 teraflops. Pretty significant, and the FPS here is pretty tragic. We are looking at 6 or 7 FPS at 1400 by 1800 resolution. This is the 16 by 9 resolution, and as you can see, with low settings turned on, we're definitely struggling. Now, is this playable? No, not really, but the reason I put this up is just to give you guys an idea of just how this looks. But don't worry, Plasma is crazy enough, and I will try to fly this airplane. But in order to get slightly better performance so that I actually put some inputs and get some outputs out of it, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to switch the resolution even lower to a semi 4:3 resolution, and this would give me just a couple of more extra FPS to get me to, well, maneuver the plane in any shape that I possibly can. Alright, so here we go. 960 by 562 resolution. This is about 0.25 of an actual 4K screen. So pretty low, and the settings are all turned down as low as possible. And we're getting a stable 9 to 12 FPS. Yeah, guys, 10 years ago hardware definitely does not match the DCS requirements nowadays, especially with the video cards such as the GT640. Back in the day, that card could have probably played some games, but not even the high-end games out there, because the 6 series had higher end cards as well. Now, if we try to do any sort of combat operations with this video card, can we win? Well, I was going to leave it at this, but I looked at this and I said to myself, okay, I've got a keyboard. I didn't even have my joystick. Can I win a dogfight here? So here we go. Let's go into this dogfight. This F5 looked very tasty. Let's try to shoot it down. Something to keep in mind, I did not have a joystick connected, and I was probably losing 1 or 2 FPS, but we are really dogfighting at 9 FPS. Close-up shot, R73, do we get a splash? No, the AI has evaded my R73, second R73, so I'll have lock, tail aspect, come on missile, get that guy. It's tracking, and there we go, we do have a splash confirmed. I believe that is my first splash ever at 9 FPS in the bomber intercept mission. And no guys, don't make fun of me for playing against the AI, because yeah, I'm not going to bother playing against real I was going to go into GS and try to load this up, but I said to myself, I don't need that sort of punishment. All right, let's find that second F5. Second F5 is on my wingman. We are starting to really run out of missiles here. We're all out of R73s over the top. I'm still not stalling out, and I haven't died, so this is pretty good. I've got a couple of ETs. ET out on that other F5. Second ET just for good measure. First one hits, and then the second one connects as well. There we go, guys. Splash 2 F5 E3s in an Su-27 on the bomber intercept mission while flying at 9 or 10 FPS. Hopefully you are very proud of me, but this does show you just how much the hardware requirements have grown for DCS World over the years. If we look back at the original DCS footage, and here's some of it for you, we can really see how much the quality has improved both in the terrain details and the environment. No, of course, it's not at the level of some of the first-person shooters and those Unreal Engine games, but let's come in for a landing, and do appreciate that despite the fact that we're running on worse hardware here, we're still able to get quite a bit of detail, and just the terrain detail, even on low settings, that is far superior. Now, the extra bonus here is trying to land an Su-27 at 9 FPS. I know people always make fun of plasma landing, and in this case I am really trying. Extra bonus points for those who are watching this, because I am landing with a keyboard and just ballparking it here. So there is no stick, no throttle. This was on my test PC. External view at the last second, and I tap P for parachute. So there you have it, guys. Landing safe and semi-sound on the ground, and this kind of gives you the idea of just the kind of performance that we've seen from the new hardware compared to what was out 10, 12 years ago. For everybody else, hopefully you've enjoyed this video, and if you've watched this far and you have somebody who needs a 3770 processor and a GT 640, that video card and motherboard with 32 gigs of RAM is still lying around. Used to be the old Red Star server, which was upgraded back in February, but the hardware is available. And for now, I'm just going to leave you with some F5 trying to fly around at full HDR quality on a 4090. Plasma 1945 out.